In Case of Emergency by Rodrigo de la Peña seeks to explore how disaster, whether natural, personal, or collective disaster shape our lives. The poem reminds us that we are prone to catastrophe and must always be ready in case of emergency. It illustrates calamities and enlightens us about our condition as human. In this poem, the speaker represents the poet himself. It speaks on his nature concerning how he feels and thinks. Is a piece of writing which the words are chosen for their beauty and sound and are carefully arranged, often in short lines which rhyme. Poem Analysis in Case of Emergency by Rodrigo de la Peña. In Case of Emergency was written by Rodrigo V. de la Peña Jr., a Filipino writer who is based in Singapore.
My Blue Hen by Anne Gray. The title depicts the untold story about the author's thoughts and feelings basing on his own experience. It's very hard to understand the poem because it has a predominant usage of symbolism and imagery. Sharing his bizarre thoughts and feelings about her experience of being in love with someone that you cannot really have. As I'm diving deeper into the poem, the story is insightfully stating a lesson that there are limits on what a person can do. He also described his heart is like a kayak, a coffin, and a ship in a full sail, which means his path is undecided choices for how you carry on with your journey. Life decisions which can be changed depending on how the situation is. His poetry can see the things that are impossible to happen in real life. My Blue Hen by Anne Gray. The title depicts the untold story about the author's thoughts and feelings basing on his own experience. It's very hard to understand the poem because it has a predominant usage of symbolism and imagery. Sharing his bizarre thoughts and feelings about her experience of being in love with someone that you cannot really have. As I'm diving deeper into the poem, the story is insightfully stating a lesson that there are limits on what a person can do. He also described his heart is like a kayak, a coffin, and a ship in a full sail, which means his path is undecided choices for how you carry on with your journey. Life decisions which can be changed depending on how the situation is. His poetry can see the things that are impossible to happen in real life.
Buwis by Charleston Ong. Achievement of the author. Charleston Ong is a multi-awarded fictionist who has received, among others, a Palanca Award for his short story, The Trouble in Beijing, a second-place Philippine Centennial Literary Prize for his novel, an Embarrassment of Riches, and several National Book Awards for his works across the years. Exposition. The play revolves around the 75-year-old Chinese-Filipino woman Anita, who runs a hardware store and recently lost her husband Antonio. It takes place in a Chinese-Filipino residence located in the heart of Manila. It all started when Jackson, the BIR examiner, came to collect Anita's hardware shop taxes. Time. It happened early that morning when Jackson, the BIR collector, paid a visit to Anita's house. Place. It takes place in Anita's living room where there is an altar with incense and a traditional urn with fruits as the offering. Mood. It feels tragic as Anita reminisced her time with her husband Antonio. It's also strange and intriguing to think that Anita's body was possessed. Eventually, in the last scene, I felt the contentment Anita felt after she finished talking to her presumed dead son Jason. Rising action. Mrs. Anita was asked by Jackson if she would let herself be possessed by spirits, because Jackson wants to talk to her deceased wife Elena. Climax. Anita's body was successfully possessed by Elena. Jackson had a lengthy conversation with his wife and asked for assistance. Elena rebuked Jackson for his wrongdoings. Jackson then expressed his displeasure with his money being spent on their children and Elena's surgeries. Falling action. Anita's niece Belinda appears and explains everything. Anita learned that her long-lost son Jason had taken out a small insurance policy, and as time went on, it grew to 12 million pesos. Conclusion. Anita agrees to let Jackson borrow her money in exchange for a commitment. It was agreed that it would pay for no more than 2 years, after which Aling Anita chose to build the foundation for children with the funds she will get Jackson. In exchange, Jackson vowed to assist her. Protagonist. Anita, a 75-year-old widowed Chinese-Filipino woman who's alone due to her family's death. Anita's family have a business, a hardware store, and general merchandise. She loves to talk about her family and her life in China. Antagonist. Jackson Peña, a 55-year-old BIR examiner demanding Anita's debt taxes. He has a bad work ethic and an irresponsible family member too. I'd suppose he's rapacious, especially when it comes to money. Supporting characters. Belinda, an insurance broker and Anita's niece. Since Anita's family is all gone, she's the one who's helping Anita to manage the debt taxes and communicate better with Jackson Peña, the BIR examiner. Max, a 10-year-old boy. He's Anita's neighbor. Somehow, Max reminds Anita about his late son Jason. Jason, a 25-year-old man. He was 15 years missing but later presumed dead in a plane crash. Personal reaction. Money is a big magnifying glass on who you truly and genuinely were and always have been. Jackson perfectly exhibit the quote when he said, "Basta, Aling Anita, baka naman, liban dun sa ibabayad nyo sa gobyerno na ipinapangako kung mapupunta lahat sa kaban ng bayan, ay maaari nyo akong pahiramin ng kahit na 1,000,000 o isa lang or dalawa." Actually, what happened here was that he was always an asshole, with or without the money. But when he didn't have money, he didn't have power or title, so he had to preserve his attitude in check. Though such a person will never be the purest, sweetest person you've ever seen and then flip into the most awful person unless it was all an act. Money enables people to express themselves by giving them the means and abilities to do so. It provides them the boldness and confidence to reveal their true selves. The play was also about being grateful for our loved ones. Time is the most valuable gift we can give to someone. Sometimes, the most priceless gift can be the most expensive and meaningful to our family. Life seems to have tied us up in our own lives, consumed with irrelevant impulses that push our responsibilities aside. However, today, take a step back and reflect on how many wonderful people you have in your life. I say this because there will come a day when we should say our goodbyes, and we must be strong knowing that we spent as much time as we could with a special person or family, and created many wonderful memories together. Count your blessings, tell someone you love them, and live in the moment. Quotations. First phrase. Ang buwis na ipinapataw sa iyo ay buot langit. sing lalim ng impyerno, sing bigat ng dagat, sing lawak ng disyerto. Pahina 6. Second phrase. Obligasyon din natin ang mabuhay, Anita. Dapat nating mabuhay habang may buhay. Pahina 11. Third phrase. Mas mahalaga ang buhay. Pahina 12.